The medical bay of the galactic vessel times Harmony's rest times hummed with soft blue light. Doctor. Velix moved through the sterile corridors with practiced ease, their 4 arms carrying different medical instruments. It was supposed to be a quiet shift. The Quilarian doctor had been working on the neutral hospital ship for 15 cycles, treating various species from across the coalition. They had seen almost everything. Almost. The emergency alarm shattered the peaceful atmosphere. Red lights flashed along the corridor walls. Velix's communication device crackled to life. Medical emergency incoming. Unknown species. Severe injuries from spatial anomaly exposure. Velix rushed to the emergency receiving bay. Unknown species were rare but not impossible. The coalition had 847 member species. And occasionally, explorers from uncontacted civilizations stumbled into their space. The doctor prepared the Universal Treatment Pod, a sophisticated machine capable of adapting to most biological forms. The transport shuttle docked with a heavy clang. The doors hissed open, revealing 3 beings in strange uniforms. 2 of them were carrying the third on a stretcher. Velix studied them quickly. Bipedal. 2 arms. Hair on their heads. Smooth skin in various shades. They looked remarkably similar to several humanoid species in the coalition. Yet, subtly different. Please help her, the tallest one said through the automatic translator. His voice was deep and strained with worry. Lieutenant Hana was hit by debris when the anomaly pulled our ship. She lost consciousness 10 minutes ago. Velix gestured to the treatment pod. Place her here. We will scan and treat immediately. The 2 conscious beings carefully lifted their companion onto the scanning platform. Velix noticed how gently they moved her, how their faces showed clear distress. Emotional attachment to crew members was common in social species. Good. It meant they would cooperate with treatment. I am Captain Hyun, the tall one said. This is Engineer Dae-ho. We are from Earth. Our ship is the Times Pioneer Dawn, **. We were exploring this sector when the spatial anomaly appeared. Earth? Velix had never heard of it. Not in Coalition space? No, we are explorers. First time this far from our home system. Velix nodded and activated the medical scanner. The machine came to life, projecting holographic displays of internal biological systems. This was the moment of truth. Every species had different organ placements, different chemical compositions, different vulnerabilities. The scanner would map everything and suggest treatment protocols. The display flickered and stabilized. Velix began reading the data. Skeletal structure, reinforced but flexible. Muscular system, dense and efficient. Respiratory system, oxygen-based. Bilateral lungs. Digestive system, acidic, multi-chambered. Brain, centralized, highly developed. Everything seemed relatively standard for a humanoid species. Then Velix saw the cardiovascular readout. The doctor froze. All 4 arms stopped moving. Their large eyes widened in shock. 2 heartbeats, 2 distinct, separate cardiac rhythms showing on the display. What is this? Velix whispered. Captain Hyun stepped closer. What is wrong? Is she dying? Velix did not answer. They were already running the scan again. Certain there was an error. Medical scanners sometimes glitched when encountering unknown biology. But the second scan showed the same results. 2 hearts, both functioning, both pumping blood through separate but interconnected circulatory pathways. The doctor's training kicked in. In all of Velix's medical knowledge, dual cardiac organs meant only 2 things: parasitic infection or severe genetic mutation. Both were extremely dangerous. Both required immediate intervention. I need to call the chief medical officer, Velix said, trying to keep their voice calm. Please wait here. What is happening? Dae-ho asked, his voice rising. Is the scan showing something bad? Please. Just wait. Velix rushed to the communication panel and sent an urgent signal to Chief Medical Officer Wrath. Within seconds, the Centauri physician materialized via holographic projection. Wrath's crystalline body structure caught the light, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. "What is the emergency, Velix?" "Chief, we have a patient from an unknown species. Earth, they call it." The scans showed dual cardiac organs. Both active, both integrated into the circulatory system. The crystalline structure of Wrath's body actually changed color, shifting from calm blue to alarmed orange. In Centauri biology, this was the equivalent of a human's jaw dropping open. Parasitic, the scanner is not detecting foreign DNA. It appears to be native biology. Mutation? Unknown. The patient is unconscious. I cannot interview them about medical history. Wrath was quiet for a moment, their body flickering through several colors as they processed this information. "I am coming immediately. Do not begin treatment until I arrive. If this is a new form of parasite, we cannot risk it spreading." The hologram vanished. Velix returned to the medical bay, where Captain Hyun and Engineer Dae-ho were standing close to their unconscious companion. The doctor could see the worry in their faces, the way they kept looking at the monitors as if they could interpret the alien medical displays. "What did you find?" Hyun asked directly. Velix hesitated. "How to explain this without causing panic? Your companion has an unusual cardiac structure. We are bringing in our chief medical officer to consult." "Unusual how?" Before Velix could answer, Chief Medical Officer Wrath entered the bay in person. The Centauri moved with fluid grace, despite their crystalline body structure. They approached the scanner display and studied it in silence for a long moment. "Extraordinary," Wrath finally said. "I have never seen anything like this in 300 years of practice." "Is it dangerous?" Dae-ho asked, stepping forward. "Can you treat her?" Wrath turned to face the two humans. "Your companion has 2 hearts. Both appear to be fully functional. In coalition medical experience, this only occurs in cases of severe parasitic infection or catastrophic genetic mutation. Both conditions are fatal without immediate surgical intervention." Captain Hyun blinked. Then he looked at Engineer Dae-ho. Something passed between them. Something that looked almost like confusion? 2 hearts? Hyun repeated slowly. "Yes. We need to determine which one is the original organ and which is the growth. Then we can surgically remove the secondary structure before it causes systemic failure." "Remove?" Dae-ho said, his voice suddenly sharp. "You want to remove one of her hearts? It is the only way to save her life," Wrath explained patiently. "I understand this is difficult to hear, but dual cardiac organs are not sustainable. The biological stress alone will cause cascade failure within days, possibly hours." Velix prepared the surgical instruments, while Wrath continued explaining the procedure to the 2 humans. They both looked increasingly alarmed, which was expected. No species wanted to hear their companion needed emergency surgery in an alien medical facility. The doctor was calibrating the tissue scanner when they heard a weak voice from the treatment pod. "Wait. What?" Everyone turned. Lieutenant Hana's eyes were open. She was conscious, though clearly weak. Her hand moved slowly to her chest, and she winced in pain from her other injuries. "Hana!" Captain Hyun rushed to her side. "Do not move too quickly. You are injured." "I heard something about surgery." Hana's voice was rough but growing stronger. "What is wrong?" Wrath approached the treatment pod, their crystalline body shifting to a gentle green color meant to be calming. "You have a serious medical condition. Our scans show you have 2 hearts. We need to remove the secondary growth immediately." Hana stared at the Centauri doctor. Then she started laughing. It was a weak laugh, interrupted by a cough, but definitely a laugh. "Secondary growth? You mean my second heart?" She smiled despite her obvious pain. "That is just my backup. All humans have them." The medical bay fell completely silent. Velix's 4 arms froze mid-motion. Wrath's crystalline body turned a color that neither Hyun nor Dae-ho had ever seen before. Something between purple and gray. "Backup?" Velix whispered. Hana nodded, still smiling. Yes. Standard biology. Every human has two hearts. One primary, one backup. Has been that way for 3 generations now. She looked at the shocked faces of the alien doctors, and her smile faded slightly. Wait. That is not normal for other species? The silence in the medical bay stretched for what felt like forever. Dr. Velix stood perfectly still, all 4 arms hanging limply at their sides. Chief Medical Officer Rath's crystalline body had stopped changing colors entirely, frozen in that strange purple-gray shade of complete confusion. Lieutenant Hana tried to sit up on the treatment pod, but pain shot through her ribs. She winced and settled back down. Okay. Someone needs to explain why everyone looks like I just spoke in a dead language. Captain Hyun placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. They thought your second heart was a disease. They wanted to remove it surgically. Remove my backup heart? Hana's eyes went wide. That is insane. Why would anyone do that? Because... Rath said slowly, their voice careful and measured. In all 847 species of the Galactic Coalition, no one has 2 hearts naturally. Dual cardiac organs only appear in cases of parasitic infection or severe genetic mutation. Both conditions are fatal. Hana stared at the crystalline alien. You are serious. Completely serious. So all of your species, hundreds of them, and none have backup hearts? None. Hana looked at Captain Hyun, then at Engineer Dae-ho, then back at the alien doctors. Well, that is terrifying. What happens if your heart fails? Double. We die, Velix said simply. You just die? No backup system? No failover? Heart failure is a leading cause of death across most coalition species, Rath explained. Medical intervention can sometimes save a patient if we reach them quickly enough, but usually the damage is too severe. Why do you find this terrifying? It is simply biology. Hana shook her head in disbelief. It is terrifying because it is so easily preventable. Earth almost went extinct 300 years ago because of a cardiac plague. Millions died. After that, we decided never again. We built a backup. Dr. Velix stepped closer to the treatment pod. Their scientific curiosity was beginning to override their shock. You built a backup heart? Artificially? Yes. Well, bioengineered. The procedure became standard for all newborns about 200 years ago. Now, every human has 2 hearts. The primary heart does most of the work during normal life. The secondary heart stays mostly dormant but ready. Ready for what? Rath asked. Ready to take over if the primary fails, or to help during extreme physical stress, or during illness, or in low-oxygen environments, or really any situation where having a backup cardiac system would keep us alive. Hana said this as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. The 2 alien doctors exchanged glances. Velix could see that Rath was thinking the same thing they were. This was revolutionary. This was impossible. This was brilliant. This was insane. How does the transition work? Velix asked, their medical training demanding answers. If the primary heart fails, how does the secondary take over? Automatically, Hana said. There are sensors throughout the cardiovascular system. If blood pressure drops below critical levels, or if the primary heart stops beating, the secondary immediately ramps up to full capacity. Takes about 3 seconds for complete transition. 3 seconds. Rath repeated, their body finally shifting to a deep blue color that indicated intense thought. And this has been tested millions of times across the entire human population over 2 centuries. The survival rate for cardiac events increased by 97% after the backup heart became standard. Engineer Dae-ho spoke up from where he stood near the medical displays. I can show you the technical specifications if you want. I have the bioengineering database on my personal device. Yes, Velix said immediately. Please. I need to see this. Dae-ho pulled out a slim device and interfaced it with the medical bay's display systems. Within moments, detailed schematics of human cardiac anatomy filled the holographic screens. The two alien doctors moved closer, studying every detail. The images showed two hearts positioned in the chest cavity. The primary heart was located in the standard position, slightly left of center. The secondary heart was positioned to the right and slightly lower, integrated perfectly into the circulatory system. Blood vessels connected both organs in an elegant network of redundancy. The secondary heart is smaller than the primary, Velix observed. By about 20%, Deho confirmed. It does not need to be as large because it only operates at full capacity during emergencies. During normal life, it beats at about 30% capacity, just enough to maintain the organ and keep it ready. Rath zoomed in on the vascular connections. This is remarkable engineering. The integration is seamless. But how do you prevent rejection? Adding a major organ to an already developed biological system should trigger massive immune responses. The secondary heart is grown from the patient's own stem cells during early development, Hana explained. It is genetically identical to the patient. The body recognizes it as self, not foreign tissue. Grown from stem cells, Roth whispered. During early development, you perform this procedure on infants, usually within the first 6 months after birth. The earlier the integration, the better the outcome. The infant's body adapts to having two hearts as it grows. Velix felt something they had not felt in many years of medical practice. Envy. Their species, the Quilarians, had a tragically high rate of heart disease. Their daughter had died from heart failure just 2 cycles ago. She had been only 23 years old. The best medical intervention in Coalition space had not been enough to save her, and these humans had simply engineered a solution. This must have required incredible biomedical expertise, Velix said quietly. Captain Hyun nodded. Earth's best scientists worked on the project for decades. After the cardiac plague, we poured everything into solving the problem. Money, resources, time. Nothing mattered more than making sure our children would not die the way our parents did. And it worked, Hana added. I am living proof. When I was 17, I had a massive heart attack during athletic training. Genetic defect in the primary heart. In the old days, I would have died within minutes. But my backup kicked in. I walked myself to the medical center. The doctors repaired my primary heart, while the secondary kept me alive. 6 weeks later, I was back to normal life. Roth's crystalline body was now glowing a warm gold color. In Centauri biology, this indicated deep respect and admiration. You were 17 when your heart failed? Yes. And you survived because of the backup? Yes. And now both hearts function normally? Both work perfectly. I run marathons. I pass the physical requirements for deep space exploration. I have 0 limitations. The chief medical officer turned away from the displays and looked at Hana with what could only be described as wonder. Your species looked at one of the fundamental weaknesses of biological life and simply fixed it. We got tired of losing people to something we could prevent, Hana said simply. Dr. Velix moved to the medical console and began typing rapidly. I need to run more detailed scans. If you consent, Lieutenant Hana, I would like to map your entire cardiovascular system. This could change everything we know about cardiac medicine. Of course, Hana agreed. Scan whatever you need. As Velix worked, Rath stood silently, processing everything they had learned. Finally, the Centauri spoke. I must ask something that may seem strange. Do humans have other backup systems? Captain Hyun and Engineer Dae-ho looked at each other. We have 2 kidneys, Dae-ho said. Humans can survive with just 1. So having 2 is technically a backup system. That is common in many species, Rath acknowledged. We also have enhanced liver regeneration, Hana added. The liver can regenerate from as little as 25% of its original mass. If you removed 3/4 of a human liver, It would grow back within a few months. Velik stopped typing. It would grow back? Yes. Is that not normal? No. Both. Alien doctors said together. We also have distributed neural backup systems, Captain Hyun mentioned casually. If one part of the brain is damaged, other parts can adapt to take over the lost functions. Takes time and rehabilitation. But the brain rewires itself, and redundant sensory organs. Daeho continued. 2 eyes, 2 ears. Lose one, still have the other. Wrath's color shifted again, this time to a bright orange that indicated alarm mixed with excitement. Your entire species is built on redundancy. Well, yes, Hana said. After the cardiac plague, Earth's philosophy became very simple. Never have a single point of failure. Always have a backup. Build systems that can survive damage and keep going. You are biological tanks, Velik said with something like awe in their voice. Hana smiled. We prefer to think of ourselves as prepared. The medical bay fell quiet again, but this time, it was not the silence of shock. It was the silence of profound realization. 2 alien doctors stood before a human patient, understanding that everything they thought they knew about biological limitations had just been challenged. I need to report this to the Coalition Medical Council, Wrath finally said. They need to know that a species exists with intentionally engineered biological redundancy. This will change everything. Everything. Their face example. Wrath finally said. Everything. Is that a problem? Captain Hyun asked. No, Wrath said, their body glowing warm gold again. It is a revelation. The news spread through the Galactic Coalition faster than anyone expected. Dr. Velik's preliminary medical report on human biology reached the Coalition medical database within hours of Lieutenant Hana's treatment. By the next day, medical professionals from hundreds of worlds were downloading the data, analyzing it, debating it. By the 3rd day, the debate had become a storm. Chief Medical Officer Wrath received over 10,000 requests for additional information. Medical journals across Coalition space were publishing emergency editorials. The Council of Biological Ethics called an emergency session. And the Interspecies Medical Conference, which usually met once every 5 years, announced a special gathering to discuss the human question. The conference was scheduled to take place on Axiom Point, a massive neutral station that served as the Coalition's diplomatic hub. Lieutenant Hana, now fully recovered from her injuries, received a formal invitation to present alongside Earth's chief biomedical engineer. They want me to speak? Hana asked Captain Hyun as they sat in the Times Pioneer Dawn *''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''' briefing room. I am a military officer, not a scientist. You are also living proof of human bioengineering, Hyun replied. They want to see the results in person, not just in a medical report. Who else is going? Dr. Yuna is coming from Earth. She led the secondary heart implementation program. If anyone can explain the technical details, it is her. Dr. Yuna arrived 3 days later aboard a Coalition transport ship. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. When she met Hana at the docking bay, her first words were, "So you are the human who broke alien medicine." Hana laughed. "I did not do anything except wake up in their hospital. Sometimes that is all it takes." The conference hall on Axiom Point was enormous. Circular tiers of seating rose up from a central presentation platform. When Hana and Dr. Yuna entered, the hall was already filled with representatives from dozens of species. Quilarians, with their 4 arms, Centauri, with their crystalline bodies, the massive Thrin, who looked like living mountains, the delicate wisps, who floated in specialized atmosphere containers, the reptilian Scar, the insectoid Vex, and hundreds more. All of them were here to discuss humanity. Dr. Velik and Chief Medical Officer Wrath met them at the entrance. Velik seemed nervous, their forearms moving in agitated patterns. Wrath's crystalline body was shifting through colors rapidly, never settling on one shade for more than a few seconds. Thank you for coming, Rath said. I must warn you. The response to our report has been intense. Intense how? Dr. Yuna asked. About 40% of the medical community is fascinated and wants to learn everything they can. Another 40% is horrified and believes what humans have done is unnatural. The remaining 20% is undecided but concerned. So, we have a mixed audience, Hana observed. Very mixed. Please be prepared for difficult questions. The presentation began with Dr. Yuna taking the central platform. Holographic displays materialized around her, showing detailed images of human anatomy. She spoke clearly and calmly, explaining the history of Earth's cardiac plague and humanity's response. 300 years ago, a virus swept across Earth. It targeted cardiac tissue specifically, causing rapid deterioration of heart muscle. Medical intervention was ineffective. We lost approximately 40% of Earth's population within 2 years. The audience shifted uncomfortably. A 40% death rate was catastrophic by any measure. In the aftermath, Earth's scientific community faced a choice. We could accept that heart disease was simply part of life, an unavoidable risk, or we could eliminate the risk entirely through biological engineering. Dr. Yuna brought up schematics of the secondary heart system. We chose elimination. The secondary heart project took 30 years to develop and another 20 years to test. Once we confirmed it was safe and effective, it became standard procedure for all newborns. Today, every human born has 2 hearts. A Thalaxian surgeon in the 3rd tier stood up. Their scaled body reflected the hall's lighting as they spoke. You altered the fundamental biology of your entire species based on one plague event? Yes, Dr. Yuna said simply. That is reckless. Evolution shaped cardiac systems over millions of years. You cannot simply add new organs and expect no consequences. We tested extensively for 3 decades before human trials. Then we monitored the first generation for their entire lives before making it standard practice. That is not reckless. That is careful. A Vryn medical ethicist raised their wing-like appendage. But you are playing God with evolution. Who gave humanity the right to redesign their own biology? Dr. Yuna turned to face the Vryn directly. Evolution gave us intelligence. We used that intelligence to survive. That is not playing God. That is using the tools we have to solve the problems we face. The debate continued for over an hour. Some speakers praised human innovation. Others condemned it as dangerous and unnatural. A few pointed out that even if the dual hearts were safe for humans, it set a troubling precedent for other species to follow. Then a quiet voice spoke from the lower tier. It was Dr. Velix. May I share something personal? The hall fell silent. Velix stood, their 4 arms folded across their chest in a Quillarian gesture of vulnerability. My daughter died 2 cycles ago. She was 23 years old. Heart failure. We had the best medical care in Coalition space. It was not enough. She died in my arms while I watched her heart stop, and there was nothing I could do. The Quillarian doctor's voice was steady but heavy with old grief. When I scanned Lieutenant Hana and saw 2 heartbeats, my first thought was that something was wrong. My second thought, after I learned the truth, was this. If my daughter had been human, she would still be alive. Velix looked around the hall. You can debate the ethics. You can argue about playing God or respecting evolution. But I am a doctor. My purpose is to preserve life. Humans found a way to save their children from heart disease. They succeeded. That is not unnatural. That is medicine. The hall remained silent for a long moment after Velix sat down. Then Hana stood from her seat and walked to the central platform. Dr. Yuna stepped aside, giving her space. I am not a scientist, Hana said. I am a military officer. But I am also someone whose backup heart saved her life when she was 17. I want to tell you what that means in practical terms. She activated a holographic display showing her own medical records. This is my cardiac event at age 17. Massive failure of the primary heart due to a genetic defect. In the old times, before the backup system, I would have died within 3 minutes. But my secondary heart activated automatically. It kept me alive while medical teams repaired the damage. The display shifted to show her current health records. This is me now. At age 28. Both hearts functioning perfectly. I run 5 kilometers every morning. I passed the rigorous physical requirements for deep space exploration. I have 0 health complications from having 2 hearts. 0. 0. She looked around the hall, making eye contact with as many beings as she could. You say we played God. I say we refuse to accept that a 17-year-old should die from something preventable. You say we violated natural biology. I say, nature does not care about individuals. Nature is random. Nature kills without mercy. We decided to be better than random chance. A small, bird-like being in the upper tier called out, but where does it end? If you add backup hearts, what stops you from adding backup lungs, backup brains? At what point do you stop being the species you were? We already did add backup systems for other organs, Hana replied calmly. Enhanced liver regeneration, distributed neural backup, improved kidney function. And you want to know something? We are still human. We still love. We still dream. We still make art and music and poetry. We still feel joy and sadness and hope. We just do it all while being harder to kill. That got a reaction. Some beings shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded thoughtfully. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. Dr. Yuna stepped forward again. The coalition is free to make its own choices about biological engineering. We are not here to force our methods on anyone, but we are also not going to apologize for saving our own species from extinction. If other civilizations want to learn from what we did, we will share our knowledge freely. If they do not want to follow our path, that is their choice. Wrath stood from their position in the front tier. Their crystalline body had settled into a steady, warm gold color. I propose that the coalition establish a research initiative to study human biological redundancy, not to copy it blindly, but to understand the principles and evaluate if similar approaches could benefit other species. I second that proposal, Dr. Velik said immediately. The vote was called. Out of the hundreds of representatives present, 62% voted in favor of the research initiative. It was not unanimous, but it was a clear majority. As the conference ended and beings began filing out of the hall, a scar physician approached Hana. The reptilian being was twice her height and had scales that gleamed like polished metal. My species has a 28% infant mortality rate from respiratory failure, the scar said in a low, rumbling voice. We have accepted this as tragic but unavoidable for thousands of years. You have made me question that acceptance. Hana met the scar's eyes. Sometimes the first step to solving a problem is believing it can be solved. The scar nodded slowly. Perhaps you are right. Later that night, back aboard the Times Pioneer Dawn *, Hana sat with Captain Hyun and Dr. Yuna in the observation deck. They watched the stars through the massive viewport, processing everything that had happened. Do you think they will actually use what we showed them? Hana asked. Dr. Yuna considered the question carefully. Some will. Others will not. But we planted a seed today. The idea that biology is not destiny. The idea that we can build ourselves to be stronger, more resilient. That seed will grow. Humanity, fuck yeah, Captain Hyun said with a slight smile. Hana placed her hand over her chest, feeling both hearts beating in steady rhythm. Primary and backup. Working together. Keeping her alive. Yeah, she agreed softly. Fuck yeah. 3 weeks after the conference on Axiom Point, the ruling council of the coalition sent an official message to Earth's government. The message was polite but firm. They wanted proof. Medical scans and presentations were interesting, but the council needed to see human biological redundancy tested under controlled conditions. They called it the verification protocol. Everyone else called it the gauntlet. They want us to prove we can survive things that would kill them, Lieutenant Hana said as she read the official request in the Times Pioneer Dawn ***'s briefing room. They are basically asking us to volunteer for torture. Captain Hyun sat across from her, reviewing the same document on his own display. The tests are designed to be survivable. Difficult. Yes. But not impossible. Not impossible for humans, Hana corrected. For most coalition species, these tests would be fatal. That is the whole point. They want to see us do the impossible. Will you volunteer? Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Yes. If we want the coalition to take human biology seriously, we need to show them what we can do. Besides, I have 2 hearts. Might as well use them both. Earth's government put out a call for volunteers. The requirements were strict. Participants needed to be in perfect health, have all standard human biological enhancements, and be willing to undergo extreme physical stress under alien observation. Within 48 hours, over 10,000 humans applied. The selection committee chose 4 individuals. Lieutenant Hana, military officer with proven dual heart reliability after her cardiac event at 17. Tae-young, an emergency response medic from Seoul who had enhanced regeneration systems and had survived injuries that should have been fatal. Junho, a deep space miner from Busan who worked in extreme pressure environments and had reinforced skeletal structure. And Sora, a xenobiologist from Jeju who studied radiation-based ecosystems and had enhanced cellular repair systems. They met for the first time on Axiom Point, in a briefing room adjacent to the testing facility. The facility itself was a massive structure, built specifically for the gauntlet. Through the observation windows, they could see the 5 testing chambers, each one designed to push different biological systems to their absolute limits. Dr. Velix and Chief Medical Officer Rath entered the briefing room, accompanied by a dozen other coalition medical experts. Roth's crystalline body was a neutral gray color, carefully controlled to show no emotion. "Thank you for volunteering," Rath said. "Before we begin, I need to make something clear. These tests are based on coalition medical data about lethal thresholds. For our species, these conditions would be fatal. We have designed them to be theoretically survivable based on your medical scans. But there is still risk." "We understand the risk," Hana said. The other 3 humans nodded in agreement. "Very well. The gauntlet consists of 5 trials. Each trial will test a different aspect of human biological redundancy. You will each face the trial most relevant to your specific enhancements. Hundreds of coalition medical professionals will observe and record everything. Are you ready?" "We are ready," Tae-young said calmly. The first trial was the cardiac stress test, designed for Hana. She entered a large chamber with monitoring equipment covering every surface. Coalition doctors attached sensors to her body, dozens of them, measuring everything from heart rate to oxygen levels to neural activity. Dr. Velix explained the procedure through the chamber's communication system. "We will ask you to perform extreme physical exercise. While you are exercising, we will use electromagnetic pulse technology to stop your primary heart. Your secondary heart must take over completely and maintain your body's functions." "Will it hurt?" Hana asked. "The electromagnetic pulse should be painless. The exercise will be exhausting. Then let us begin." The exercise started simple, running on a treadmill, but the speed increased rapidly. Within minutes, Hana was sprinting at full speed, her heart rate climbing. She could feel both hearts working, the primary doing most of the work, while the secondary maintained its steady backup rhythm. Then the electromagnetic pulse hit. Her primary heart stopped. Just stopped, mid-beat. For a fraction of a second, Hana felt a strange emptiness in her chest. Then her secondary heart surged to full capacity, ramping up from 30% to 100% in less than 3 seconds. The transition was seamless. Hana kept running. Her breathing was heavy. Her muscles burned. But she kept running. The monitoring equipment showed her secondary heart maintaining perfect cardiac output. keeping her blood pressure stable, delivering oxygen to every cell. In the observation room, 300 coalition medical professionals watched in absolute silence. They had never seen anything like this. A major cardiac organ simply stopped, and the organism did not die. It did not even slow down. Hannah ran for another 20 minutes at full sprint before Dr. Velix finally called an end to the test. When she stopped and stepped off the treadmill, her primary heart restarted automatically. Both hearts worked together to bring her body back to normal resting state. She was exhausted but alive. Perfectly alive. Impossible. Someone whispered in the observation room. The second trial was the toxin filtration test, designed for Taeyang. He entered a sealed chamber and stood calmly as coalition doctors explained they would expose him to a Vrin toxin. The toxin was lethal to most species, causing liver and kidney failure within minutes. How much toxin? Taeyang asked. Enough to kill 3 Vrin adults. Wrath answered. Proceed. The toxin was released into the chamber as an aerosol. Taeyang breathed it in calmly. The monitoring equipment immediately showed the toxin entering his bloodstream, moving toward his liver and kidneys. Then his enhanced biological systems kicked in. His liver began processing the toxin at 3 times the normal rate. His kidneys filtered the breakdown products with incredible efficiency. His enhanced immune system identified and neutralized the toxin's most dangerous components. Within 18 minutes, the toxin level in his blood dropped to safe levels. Within 30 minutes, it was completely eliminated from his system. Taeyang walked out of the chamber, showing no symptoms, no illness, no damage, nothing. The third trial was the pressure adaptation test for Junho. The chamber could simulate extreme pressure conditions, like those found in deep ocean environments or inside gas giants. For most species, the pressure would crush their organs and collapse their skeletal structure. Junho entered the chamber wearing only basic clothing. No protective gear. No pressure suit. The pressure increased gradually. 10 atmospheres. 20. 50. 100. Levels that would turn most beings into paste. Junho stood calmly, breathing normally. His reinforced skeletal structure distributed the pressure evenly. His cardiovascular system adapted, maintaining proper blood flow despite the crushing force. His lungs compressed but continued functioning. At 200 atmospheres, Dr. Velix called an end to the test. They could not safely go higher without risking damage to the chamber itself. Junho emerged without a single injury. The fourth trial was radiation exposure for Sora. She entered a chamber lined with radioactive material, creating a radiation field that would be lethal to most organic life within minutes. Sora stood in the center of the field for 1 full hour. Her enhanced cellular repair systems worked constantly, identifying radiation damage and repairing it in real time. Her distributed neural backup rerouted around any brain cells that were damaged. Her immune system was on full alert, destroying any cells that became too corrupted to repair. When she emerged, medical scans showed some cellular damage, but nothing critical. Within 24 hours, her body had repaired everything completely. The fifth trial was neural disruption, tested on all 4 humans. Coalition doctors used targeted electromagnetic fields to disrupt specific regions of the brain, simulating stroke or traumatic injury. In most species, such damage would cause permanent disability or death. In humans, the distributed neural backup systems immediately began compensating. When the language center was disrupted, other brain regions took over the function within seconds. When motor control was affected, alternate neural pathways activated. All 4 humans showed the same result. Temporary confusion during the disruption, followed by rapid adaptation and recovery. The observation room had grown from 300 observers to over 1,000 as word of the trials spread through Axiom Point. By the time the final test was complete, beings from dozens of species crowded around monitors, watching in stunned silence. Chief Medical Officer Wrath stood at the center of the observation room, their crystalline body glowing bright gold. They raised their voice to address the crowd. We designed these trials to test the absolute limits of biological survival. We chose conditions that would be fatal to our species. We expected to see humans struggle, perhaps barely survive, possibly fail. Wrath paused, looking at the 4 humans who stood together in the testing area, tired but healthy. They did not struggle. They did not barely survive. They excelled. Every test we gave them, they passed with efficiency and grace. This is not normal biology. This is not standard evolution. Wrath's body shifted to a deep, respectful blue. This is revolution. Humans have revolutionized what it means to be a biological organism. They have taken weakness and turned it into strength. They have taken vulnerability and turned it into resilience. The observation room erupted in noise. Some beings were cheering. Others were arguing. A few were simply standing in shocked silence. Dr. Velix approached the 4 humans as they left the testing area. The Quilarian doctor's 4 arms moved in a gesture of deep respect. "Thank you," Velix said quietly. "You have shown us that biology is not destiny. That survival is a choice we can engineer, not just accept." Hana smiled, placing her hand over her chest where both hearts beat strong and steady. "We just showed you what is possible when you refuse to accept unnecessary death. And we will learn from it," Velix promised. 6 months after the gauntlet, Commander Hana was preparing for her next deep space mission when the emergency message arrived. It came through official coalition channels, marked with the highest priority code. Captain Hyun called her to the bridge immediately. "What is happening?" Hana asked, as she entered the command center. Hyun pointed at the main display screen. A message from the Quilarian homeworld filled the view. The text was simple, but devastating. "Plague outbreak. Cardiac virus. Spreading rapidly. Request immediate assistance from Earth biomedical teams." Hana felt her stomach drop. She remembered Dr. Velix talking about losing a daughter to heart failure. Now, an entire world faced the same threat. "When did this start?" 3 weeks ago, Hyun replied. "They tried to contain it with standard medical protocols. It did not work. The virus specifically targets heart tissue, causing rapid deterioration. It is similar to the cardiac plague Earth faced 300 years ago. How many dead? Current count is over 2 million, and rising fast." Hana closed her eyes for a moment, processing the numbers. 2 million. And that was just the beginning. Earth's cardiac plague had killed 40% of the population before it burned out. If the same thing happened to the Quilarians, billions would die. "We need to help them," she said. "Earth's government is already assembling a response team. Dr. Yuna will lead it. They are requesting military support for logistics and coordination." "I volunteer," Hyun nodded. "I thought you might. I already put your name forward." 4 days later, Commander Hana stood in the cargo bay of Earth's medical response ship Times, Mercy *, watching as hundreds of containers were loaded aboard. Each container held biomedical equipment, surgical supplies, and the technical specifications for adapting human secondary heart technology to Quilarian biology. Dr. Yuna approached her, carrying a data tablet. The biomedical engineer looked exhausted already, and they had not even reached the Quilarian homeworld yet. "Will it work?" Hana asked. "Can we adapt our secondary heart technology for them?" "Theoretically, yes. Quilarian biology is actually more compatible with redundant organ systems than human biology was. Their 4-armed structure means they have a larger chest cavity, more room for a second heart. But theory and practice are very different things." "How long to develop the procedure?" "If we work fast, maybe 2 weeks for initial trials. Another month to refine it. Then, we need to scale up production for billions of procedures." Hana did the math in her head. 2 million dead in 3 weeks. At that rate, the plague would kill hundreds of millions before they could implement a solution. "We need to work faster." "I know." The Times Mercy Times arrived at the Quilarian homeworld 72 hours later. The planet was beautiful from orbit, covered in purple vegetation and vast oceans. But the cities showed signs of chaos. Traffic patterns were disrupted. Communication networks were overloaded. The plague was tearing their civilization apart. Dr. Velix met them at the spaceport. The Quilarian doctor looked terrible. Their usual careful movements were jerky and uncoordinated. Their eyes were red from crying. "Thank you for coming," Velix said quietly. "My family is gone. My wife died yesterday. My son is infected. I do not know how much time he has." Dr. Yuna placed a gentle hand on one of Velix's arms. "We are going to save him. We are going to save all of them. Show us where to set up." The Quilarian government had cleared an entire medical complex for the Earth team. Within hours, Dr. Yuna had set up a research laboratory and surgical center. Taeyang, Junho, and Sora had also volunteered for the mission. They worked alongside dozens of human medical specialists, running simulations, testing procedures, adapting technology. The challenge was significant. Human secondary hearts were grown from infant stem cells and integrated during early development. The Quilarians needed a solution that worked for adults, and they needed it immediately. Dr. Yuna worked for 48 hours straight, sleeping in brief 20-minute intervals between experiments. Finally, she found a solution. Instead of growing a completely new heart from scratch, they could use a combination of cloned tissue and synthetic components to create a hybrid secondary heart. The procedure was more complex than the human version, but it could be performed on adults. "We need to test it," Dr. Yuna announced to the assembled team. "We need a volunteer." Dr. Velix stepped forward immediately. "Use me. You are not infected yet," Yuna pointed out. "We should test on someone who already has the virus. My son is infected. If the procedure works on me, I will be able to care for him without risk. If it fails, at least I tried." Yuna studied the Quilarian doctor for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right, but we do this carefully. Full monitoring. If anything goes wrong, we stop immediately." The procedure took 6 hours. Commander Hana observed from the gallery above the surgical theater, watching as Dr. Yuna and her team worked with incredible precision. They carefully placed the hybrid secondary heart in Velix's chest cavity, connected it to the existing cardiovascular system, and activated the bioelectric initiators. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the secondary heart began to beat. Slow at first, then stronger. The monitoring equipment showed it integrating with Velix's circulatory system, the synthetic and organic components working together perfectly. Dr. Velix woke up 3 hours later with 2 heartbeats. "How do you feel?" Dr. Yuna asked. Velix's forearms moved to their chest, feeling the dual rhythms. "Strange, but good. I can feel both of them working. Your primary heart is healthy, so the secondary is operating at minimal capacity. If you were to develop the plague, the secondary would take over when the primary fails. Like Lieutenant Hana's backup saved her. Exactly like that." Within 24 hours, Dr. Velix was back on their feet and working. The successful procedure was broadcast across the Quilarian homeworld. Hope, which had been dying along with millions of victims, suddenly flickered back to life. But one successful procedure was not enough. They needed millions. Dr. Yuna organized the human team into training squads. Each squad taught groups of Quilarian surgeons how to perform the secondary heart procedure. The Quilarian medical community, desperate to save their people, learned with incredible speed. Commander Hana took on a different role. She coordinated logistics, making sure medical supplies reached every city on the planet. Taeyang and Junho worked as field medics, demonstrating human endurance by operating for 72-hour shifts without rest. Their redundant biological systems allowed them to push far beyond what Quilarian doctors could manage. Sora worked with Quilarian scientists to understand the plague virus better. Together, they discovered that Quilarian biology's compatibility with secondary hearts was not a coincidence. The species had actually evolved from ancestors with dual cardiac organs, but lost one heart over millions of years of evolution. The secondary heart procedure was not adding something new. It was restoring something ancient. The first 1,000 procedures were performed within a week, 10,000 within 2 weeks. The numbers grew exponentially as more Quilarian surgeons completed their training and more production facilities came online to manufacture the hybrid hearts. Dr. Velix's son was one of the early recipients. The young Quilarian's primary heart had already begun deteriorating from the virus. The secondary heart kept him alive while doctors treated the infection. He survived. 3 months after the Earth team arrived, the death rate from the plague dropped dramatically. 6 months later, it had fallen to nearly 0. The plague still infected people, but with secondary hearts, they survived long enough for medical treatment to work. 1 year after the crisis began, the Quilarian government held a ceremony honoring the Earth medical team. Millions of Quilarians, now, had 2 hearts. Billions more were scheduled for the procedure as a preventive measure. Commander Hana stood on the ceremonial platform alongside Dr. Yuna, Taeyang, Junho, and Sora. Dr. Velix approached them. All 4 arms spread in a gesture of gratitude and respect. "You saved my species," Velix said, their voice carrying across the vast crowd. "We were dying. You gave us the tools to survive. More than that, you gave us hope." The Quilarian doctor turned to address the crowd. "When humans first came to Coalition space, we thought their dual hearts were strange, unnatural. Some called it playing God. But when death came for us, when the plague threatened to destroy our civilization, it was those unnatural hearts that saved us." Velix looked back at Hana. "You told me once that your species got tired of losing people to preventable causes. Today, my species learned that same lesson. We will never forget what you taught us." The crowd erupted in sound. Millions of Quilarians, making their traditional gesture of respect, raising all 4 arms toward the sky. The Coalition Council, watching the ceremony from Axiom Point, voted unanimously to grant Earth full membership in the Galactic Coalition. The vote was not based on military power or technological advancement. It was based on one simple fact. When another species faced extinction, humanity had shared their greatest achievement freely. That evening, Commander Hana sat with Captain Hyun in a quiet garden on the Quilarian homeworld. The purple vegetation swayed in a gentle breeze. The sky was filled with 3 moons, casting strange shadows across the landscape. "We did it," Hyun said quietly. "We saved them." Hana nodded, her hand resting over her chest. She could feel both hearts beating. Primary and backup. The same hearts that millions of Quilarians now had too. "Dr. Yuna told me something interesting," Hana said. 7 other Coalition species have already requested information about adapting secondary heart technology for their biology. The Thalaxians want it. The Vrin are considering it. Even the Centauri are running feasibility studies. So it is spreading. Like a good virus, Hana smiled. A virus of survival. A virus of refusing to accept unnecessary death. The Coalition will never be the same. No. It will not. End quote. End quote. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the moons rise higher in the alien sky. Somewhere in the city behind them, Quilarian children played with 2 hearts beating in their chests. Children who would have died without humanity's gift. Children who would grow up in a world where heart disease was no longer a death sentence. Captain Hyun stood and offered his hand to help Hana up. "Ready to go back to the ship?" "Ready. We have new missions waiting, new worlds to explore, and maybe new species to help along the way." Hana took his hand and stood. "Always. That is what we do." As they walked back through the garden toward the spaceport, Hana thought about Earth's journey. From a species nearly destroyed by plague to a species saving others from the same fate. From isolation to Coalition membership. From victims to heroes. All because humanity had looked at death and said no. All because humanity had built a backup. Commander Hana placed her hand over her chest one more time, feeling the steady double rhythm that had become the galaxy's symbol of hope. Primary and backup. Working together. Keeping the universe alive. Humanity? Fuck yeah. She whispered into the alien night, and across the Quilarian homeworld, millions of dual hearts beat in agreement.